First of all, this is a funny image from this little book on a possible image of Venice, say, 1,500 years ago. You can see that the houses are not built very small shacks. They have a roof in hay. You can see some smoke, and you can see a lagoon, a sort of a grid of little and middle-sized canals, and hundreds of islands. This is the image of Venice. Then, before that, it was not like that. Venice was solid land occupied by the Roman peasants, which after the wars they got a piece of land and they're working on it. It was a grid according to a Roman pattern. But because of three major invasions by sea, it broke up completely the landscape, and so it came out something similar. The first thing I know about Venice is that there was no land, or there was very little land to build. Take into consideration that Venice had, in the middle of the 16th century, had 173,000 inhabitants. It was the third city in Europe as population. So, not easy to build such a vast city without having land. Here, the dark color shows you the little emerged islands from the seawater. And the answer to this lack of land was filling up the land, adding land where it was vacant, enlarging the boundaries of the islands, making them bigger and bigger and bigger. And even you can see that there were lakes, salty lakes, inside the city of Venice. So it was a reclamation of land which works towards the external part of the city, but also, at the very beginning, also towards the inner part of the city. And doing that, this is the really beginning of the city of Venice. Now, this image is precious for us because it shows an ongoing reclamation of land in the island of La Giudecca, the island of the Jews. This is the toponym of the island. It's towards the south of the city. It's divided by Venice, but by a very large and very deep canal. If you look carefully here, in the southern boundaries of this island, you can see don't be nervous, Vazim, we will fix it, don't worry. And, well, you see here, but especially you can see here, straight lines. What does it mean, a straight line? It means that the land has been reclaimed from the waters and rectified. In Venice, when you see a straight line, it means reclamation of land. When you don't see a straight line, you see a curved line that also could be a reclamation of land. But in this case that you have at the south, everything will be clear to you. This is the line of the natural marriage between land and water. It's a roundish line, very organic, very designed by the work of the waters, coming in and going down. The rest of it, as I said, straight lines. And here, you can see in this U-shaped area, which is water, you can see a dotted line and one script. The script says, site to be reclaimed. How? Simply like that. Piling down piles, creating a sort of dike, and from the dike you will fill it with earth, coming from where you wish, coming from sites where the old buildings were demolished, and with the rubble they will fill up that. Or earth coming out from the excavation of canals, which was very important in the city of Venice in order to provide a good movement of the tidal waters and to make easy the naval and the boat circulation in the city. So this is what you have as a boundary between land and water. And it's very important to have this in order not to allow squatters to occupy illegally the sea, the lagoon water, which was a common property. It belonged to the Republic, to everybody, to all of us. So it was forbidden. And you know, you have a working site on the lagoon, here for instance. It will be very easy, you know, every one day or two, to put some mud in it, and so that slowly looking around if they catch you or not. The laws were very severe. Cutting your hands, paying 100 ducats, going to row in the Navy, and things like that. So the temptation was continuous. But with this line here, which is an embankment, you can see also how much work is required to build the city of Venice. It's not simply that you shovel some earth on the water and that's it. You have to create a precise boundary. Solid and strong boundary. And this is the boundary that you see. And of course you have a very thick piling system that you had also in St. Petersburg. You had it in historical times. We had it in Rome along the Tevere River and in other places where the land was not solid. Where the land is not solid, you have to consolidate it. And that's the way, typical Roman way. They invented almost everything in building science. So you have the piling, which continues. You have a double layer of thick, large boards. The thickness will be from 7 to 8 centimeters each, and they will be crossed. Then you will have the first foundation plinth in bricks. Then you will have a keystone in stone, and you will continue with bricks facing it, lining it with stone, because the stone is stronger. When your ships or your boats, heavy boats or light boats, it doesn't matter, will dock next to the embankment, they will not do any harm to this work of masonry. So this is the division between land and water. And then you can see the different kinds of pavings that you have. At the very beginning, the paving was just mud, earth. Then the second was bricks, like that, fish bone-like, herringbone or fishbone structure, and then eventually, from, I would say, the 16th, 17th century, volcanic stone from the Padua region. Now, if you follow me, it's not a perfect picture, but you can see that this canal in the so-called parallel islands of Venice, which are in the Cannaregio district, northwest district, going to the railway station today, this canal has been dried up. And you have to do it from the very beginning at least once every 10 years, because all the dirt of the city, toilets, dirt, and other things, they go into the canal. And they start filling it, so that the naval circulation will not work properly, and the tidal effect, the cleaning of the city will not work. So in this case, you have to do it. And if you look at here, on your left-hand side, you will see that this is the street line. So you have 2.5, 3 meters of height of this wall. This wall, in that case, lined up with stone, is 2.5, 3 meters high. Twice my height. So you can imagine the amount of work that is needed to do this kind of city. You see the first line of piles here, and those are the piles to build the land. And then you will have other piles underneath the stone plinth to build the church in this case. So, in other terms, you have a sort of a forest under the city of Venice, but not all over. Only just where it is needed. You know, the piles were not provided for free in the lagoons. You have to get them in the forest, at the north of Venice, 80 kilometers, 260 kilometers of distance. So it's extremely expensive. You use the piling where it's needed. And where it is needed? Where the water meets the land. Where the earth is softer, and so you will put the foundation. The under foundations in piling, you'll put them only in that area. In the interior part of it, it's not needed, because the land is higher, and it's stronger, and so you don't need them. A good mason or a good architect will detect immediately, from probably testing the land, the bearing capacity of it. And he will tell you, once upon a time, where to stop on digging. So this is the forest that you can see underneath a Renaissance palace in the city. But again, Byzantine, we call them Romanesque palaces, or Gothic palaces. All of them, they must have this kind of forest underneath it. This is an interesting drawing. It's a map of Venice by Cristoforo Sabadino. He was an expert in lagoon problems. He was an expert by the municipality, by the Republic of Venice. And in his project, you can see with the green color, the reclamation of land he was proposing. And he was, at the Giudecca, you saw that beautiful drawing it's a parchment drawing, 1521, 1523, drawing kept in the archives for our pleasure and our knowledge. The area is this one. Site to be reclaimed. So you see that he's proposing to the Republic to reclaim the entire south boundaries of the city of Venice and to create a solid pathway in stone all around the city, so that no squatters can win against the law. This was not done, but all these reclamations that you are seeing, they were done in time. So we are facing the northern lagoon. We have it here. You have it here in the exhibition. That's the church of San Giovanni e Paolo, and it's in there, San Giovanni e Paolo, sorry. That's the church. And you can see that here you have a vast area which is not reclaimed yet. This is Murano, the island for the glass, blowing the glass. And this will become the cemetery of Venice, linking the two islands. So here, after a very long debate, the Republic decided to reclaim the land. And in this drawing, which is the original project, the engineer Domenico Righetti, this drawing is dated 1590, he proposed and the Republic accepted to reclaim this land, which is in color yellow. And this is the last big reclamation of the city of Venice. There were many more in the 16th century, from 1491 to this one. the major. Then, because of the pest of the late 16th century, the population decayed, the number was smaller, and so there was no more need of big reclamation of land. But I'm very proud of this. You haven't seen it in the previous one. This is according to trustable sources. You can see how the city has been made. So in red, you have the reclaimed land up to the beginning of the 13th century. So this is the shape of Venice in the 13th, at the beginning of the 13th century, color red. Then, color yellow, another 90 years, you have, and that one was the 30% of the city. Then you have the color yellow, and you have another 21%. Then, in the beginning of the Gothic period, you have a very limited area, which has been reclaimed, 6.5, and then at the beginning of the Renaissance, you have less than 8%. So it's a process that goes on slowly, but many of the city was already existing and built up to this period. So we have half of the city color red and yellow. And then you have up to the last layers, which were after the Second World War, like the island, which is a very big parking. This is the harbor, maritime harbor, and here you have the extension of the arsenal, and here you have an housing project of the early 20th century. So this is the image of the city of Venice, which is with quantities, with percentages. So you can understand the slow procedure in this kind of thing. But there is another problem that Venetian had in the city of Venice. It was the water supply. Venice is in water, but has no water. It's written in an ancient chronicle, 1490, by Marin Sanuto. What does it mean? It's like a ship. The ship is in the water everywhere, but the only drops you have got, they are in the barrel they brought with you during your navigation. So how can a city with such a vast number of population can live without water? This is quite problematic. And there were theories according to which the early inhabitants of the city of Venice, they were able to get fresh water from the rivers going into the lagoons up to the year 1100. The chief engineer of the city of Venice said that the early inhabitants, they were able to drink and collect fresh water from the rivers when, especially with the low tide, the rivers will come in and they will bring clean water or drinkable water into, before melting it and becoming something which was salty and undrinkable. Here in this image, this is under discussion this way. I presented, this hypothesis by the city engineer of Venice in 1862. He wrote a book about that. And I presented this hypothesis to the chief naval geologist in Cambridge at St. John's College, former professor of hydrology. He said, I wouldn't have drunk it. So it's a disputable theory. Another theory is that it was possible to dig, for instance, in the fort on the Lido, along the Lido, which is the eastern boundary of the city of Venice, protecting the lagoon from the sea. Okay, it's a public record by the Republic, where the caretakers to the fortress, in a drawing of the 17th to 18th century, they presented the way to collect water at the fortress of Malamocco And it was just digging into the soil, into the earth, and you will get clean water, as we do everywhere, more or less, in the world, which is an artesian well. Or the other way was to collect water in the other fort, which was opposite to it, St. Peter's Fort, and there you will have what I'm going to explain you in a few minutes, the artificial way of getting fresh water from the sky. So those are the two possibilities if we delete the hypothesis of the chief engineer, which is not trustable. And one is that you dig and you get water. The second is you cannot dig and you have to collect rainwater. There are many, many records in which it's written in centuries that you have to be very careful while you're digging in the Venetian earth, because suddenly, after a certain height of digging, a springing water, sort of a geyser, will come out of salty water, and it will be very difficult to block it, to stop it, to fill the hole in it. So that the answer to the need of water from the very beginning was to collect rainwater. And the empty area of the city, which were the campi, the squares, big or small, or the courtyards, big or small, mainly private, belonging to the wealthy man, to the nobleman of the Venetian society, they were building this kind of an urban tissue, an urban grain, which is peculiar because it's like a sponge. A sponge has hundreds of holes in it, and the holes, they collect water. When you put the sponge into the water and you press it, it fills up by water. So the tissue of Venice is very similar to that. You have to dig many holes all around the city and collect water for your needs. It's a space-consuming planning because you have to keep the land unbuilt. There is a fantastic description of the urban structure of Venice, which is given by Sansovino, the son of the architect, in his book. Yes, it's him. In his books, he says, in a place where it shouldn't be there, he's talking about a school in Venice, and suddenly he bumps into the urban structure. He says, amazingly, the unbuilt Venice is equal to the built one, so that, if we want, we could fill up all the gaps and double the size of the city without any harm. If you think of the structure in Rome, or in Florence, or in Padua, or in Antwerp, or in other cities, or in London, how many squares do you have? Big squares, medium-sized squares, or in Spain, not many. You have one or two important squares, and then you have streets and roads. So Venice was different from this. And this land was needed. Once upon a time, the land was private. When Venice was not Venice, was not yet a city, was just a site, and where the major families, they occupied the land, and in that case, the land was private. Even the canals, the smallest canals were private. There were no roads. So the going on of the building of the city took a lot of time, centuries. But eventually they were able to create a pedestrian network, public, a canal network, public, and at the crossing on the main streets, you will have the campo, the square, with the main church, which is the parish church. We have 70 parish churches in Venice. This is the division. And so we have 70 campi, and so we have at least 70 cisterns. In Venice, the well, or the cistern, is called pozzo, which means well. It's not true, it's a cistern. And it's a very particular kind of cistern. You see the wellhead, in marble stone, in Eastern stone actually. And then you see other little signs. You see the paving, and you see those two slabs that will become clearer to you with this image, which shows you that the rainwater is collected by the paving of the campo, and also from some of the surrounding roofs, which were obliged to provide water, public water, to the public cistern. This is the water for the poor people. The rich people, we will see it in a moment. So the cistern is dug under the street level, under the campo level, and it works like that. This is another image from our little book. On your left-hand side, you see the cistern, and on the right-hand side, you see a Venetian toilet. But this is the dirty water I'm not going to talk to you. So this is a clear image of a cistern. You dig a hole. The maximum height of the hole will be 10 Venetian feet, which means 3.47,7 meters, 3.47. Say 350. After that, digging is dangerous for the reasons I explained you before. Very dangerous. Unless in the geyser, remember the geyser, unless you are in the Dorso Duro district. District in Venice is called 1/6 of the city. Dorso Duro, what does it mean? Solid, hard land. In that case, you can go deeper up to 14 Venetian feet, up to more or less 4.5, 5 meters. But this is one part of the city. The others, St. Mark, all the others, you have to stop at 3.5. Then you have to waterproof your digging, which has the shape, because the land is bad, you cannot dig in vertical or with a steep pendants. You have to dig like a vessel, like a sort of a sweet, kind sink, as a water container, like a dish in that case. But to make it waterproof, you have to waterproof it, of course, because nearby you can have a sewer here, which collects all the dirt from the houses and goes to the canal. So the leaking of it could be dangerous, because it could pollute your cistern and no more drink. So the way, and this was the only building material, apart from the money, the gold and the silver, existing in Venice, was the clay. They dug the clay from the lagoons, they went there, they folded, making not snowballs, but clay balls, throwing them with strength to this digging, beating them, pressing them for a height, a thickness of more or less 1.5 Venetian feet, which is 50 centimeters, and then you have completed your waterproofing. Then you will insert a slab or a squarish stone as the foundation for the shaft in bricks, and halfway you will stop. You will stop because now you have to fill it with sand. The sand was brought by rivers, because the Venetian sand on the Lido is salty, and to wash that salty sand will take millions of cubic meters of water. So better to take them with large boats and barges to the city of Venice. So you can imagine the materials and the energy needed to build such a city, which is even more complex than the other. Then, at this height, you will stop filling with sand, and you will build a gallery in bricks all around it, and then you will go on filling completely with sand your excavation site, and then you will create with your paving a sort of a roof, reverse roof, in order to collect with its slopes, to collect the water and to send it to those, in this case, to 4 different places where you have those perforated marble slabs with holes, so that when it rains, oh God, it rains eventually, the rainwater collected will go there. Will get its first filtering, the dirt, the cigarettes ends or the chewing gum will stop there, or the tramway tickets will stop them. And somebody, a small boy, will go twice a year with a bucket. It's 1.2, 1.3 meters high, so it's high enough. A child, a small man, can go and clean it as maintenance. And then from this point, the gallery is built with bricks. And the bricks are joined with a very meager mortar, which is not waterproof. So that the water collected eventually by a big storm, the entire quantity of the stormy water will be able to fill completely the gallery, and slowly, through the joints of meager mortar, the water will get filtered and will go to the sand. The sand is the real filter. And there, again, by gravity, slowly, it will go down, and it will get inside the shaft, which is built with roundish bricks, joined together with the same meager mortar. And then the top will be, you will put your beautiful, or if you're poor, your poor stone or even bricks wellhead. You will cover it with a cover in bronze or in iron, and then you will open it twice a day for the poor people of the parish to get the water they need. So this is it. Why the sand? If you go to Jerusalem, or you go to southern Italy, where you have a strong earth, you will or in Spain, Andalusia, the Arabs, they did it. You will create your cisterns as an empty cave under your house or nearby your house, because the land is rock, so it will stand. But in this case, it will not stand, it will collapse. So that's why you have to fill it, losing, of course, almost 40% of the volume. But still, the 60% with the sand will be enough to get enough water for yourself. And this is the Venetian system, because it suits perfectly with the qualities of the earth. So you have, this is the stonemason yard. They are working, facing opposite the Accademia galleries. This is a Canaletto painting. And you see that the lady here is getting water for the thirsty laborers. This is a more technical drawing, but if you have followed me in my previous description, I think this is very clear. And this is a project by an engineer who was done in the 20s or in the 30s of the 19th century in the jail in the island of the Giudecca. And the workers were the convicted people. It means that it was quite easy to build one, following certain rules and having an engineer to lead the work. So you have the excavation, you have in darker color, you have the clay, the stone, the shaft, the wellhead, you have the gallery here, which makes the tour, and then you have the sand. And the paving is over it. That's the end. This is from the Roman Museum in Altino, not far from Venice, and you can see the bricks which were used, same kind of bricks, for the shaft. And this is the slab of perforated stone to get the water, the rainwater. Another drawing in a collection of a traveler of the 18th century, an English traveler, this is kept in the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. And this is a fantastic description of how a cistern works. And you see the gallery, actually. So everything is clear and very easy to understand. So, sponge. This is the spongy tissue of Venice. You see that in this case, in front of the church of San Trovaso, you have a raised platform. At the very beginning, it was not raised. It occurred when the level of the water grew, and so it was quite easy that sudden floodings of salty water will destroy, or at least will waste the cistern. It will maybe 800 people or 500, 600 people will utilize this water. The parish will have its own water, but this is for the poor, please remember that. And so the government decided to raise, this is almost 90 centimeters, to raise the platform, to raise the level of the clay all around it, and so to provide good water for the people. But in case of flooding, in case of collapse of the clay lining caused by the lack of water, especially in wintertime, no rain, frost, ice on the lagoon, no possibilities of taking, because a cistern is also a water container. When you finish your water, phone call, and the guy will come with enormous barge, enormous boat, filled by water, and they fill it, your cistern. So it's both way, artificial and natural. So in case of your cistern has been ruined by a flood or by a killed man, there is a record where 2 lovers were death sentence, because the man with the head of the lady killed the husband of the lady. They cut it into pieces and they throw it into the cistern in Campo San Trovaso, which is blasphemy, not just for the killing. Maybe he was a very bad man, but because he ruined the water for the poor people. And so in that case, what you have to do, you will call a special squad from the arsenal. They will insert an endless screw, again, Leonardo da Vinci, and turning it, the dirty water will get out. Other people will empty their bucket with fresh water. They will clean, they will wash the filter in sand up to the moment where the taster will say, okay, over, getting up. This is a pump, by the way. Getting out water, let's bring fresh water in it. So very expensive. You can see in this image in a Gothic palace of the beginning of the 15th century, this is the water of the private. And they own the cistern in the courtyard, and the iron ropes went up to the 3rd floor, so that with a wheel you can easily take your buckets up to the 3rd, 2nd, and 1st floor from the cistern. We have time, another 15 minutes.
Yes. 15 to 20, maybe 25, that's okay.
Oh, really? Do you agree with that? Are you interested in? It's just water, nothing more. It's not, no art, no architecture, no planning, nothing. Well, okay, thank you. No, okay, well, up to 5. It's fine for you? Hermitage, no?
No, that's...
Good. Okay, now, Senate. The leaders of the Republic, senators, Venetian noblemen, they wrote a law according to which every building in Venice, big or small, new or old, must be provided by a gutter. What is a gutter? This is the gutter. This is cornice, this is a slab of stone, in many cases well decorated in the visible part. In the less visible part of the house, it will be plain. It's written in the documents, also that is written in the document. You see, the length will be 50, 60, 45 centimeters from one, how do you call it, cantilever in stone to the next. So that the joint between those stone slabs, excavated, dug inside, creating a sort of a canal, the union of them will be on stone. So it will not ruin, hopefully, the structure of the roof, the wooden structure of the roof. So, and it's written also, 1271 to 1272. And it's repeated after 20 years, same law. And this will be done with the help of financial help of the state, so that our citizens, while they are walking on the streets or rowing in canals, they won't get wet for the falling water by our roofs. And I add, and also collecting the water by the gutters and sending it into the cisterns, which will increase the quantity of water. You can see that every campo has at least one cistern, quite large actually. You can see it from the wellhead, and you can see here is very sunny, you don't see it, but you will see the perforated slab that will give you an idea of the dimensions of the collection. Also the roofs will send down water for you. And a Bernardo Palace, early 15th century, you see that. You have to lose land in your building plot to build a cistern. So it's a sort of a rule. 1/3 or 1/4 of your land must go unbuilt to build a cistern. And the cost of the land was terrible, extremely high, because of the lack of land, because of what I have explained you before, the cost of reclaiming and the cost of utilizing it. So this means sun, light, and water. And this is for the wealthy, rich people of the city of Venice. This is a fantastic, rich, wealthy palace. So at the Cadoro, the House of Gold, 1421-23, you see that 1/6 of the land is lost, more or less, 1/6, for the courtyard, which contains a cistern. This has been renovated. And the provision of water to the cistern came from the capital that you see on the corner of the gutter here, which is very well carved. And in this cylindrical structure, you have clay pipes, baked clay, glazed, that take the water down to the cistern. This is the explanation, this is the survey of this very cistern, and in which is written that you will have no, it's not written, sorry. You have the dimensions, you have the height, but you don't have the quantity of water. This is a building belonging to my university, Catron, and you see how important is the courtyard and the cistern itself and the decoration of the paving. Or at Capesaro, the courtyard on your left-hand side, fantastically decorated with a mint wellhead taken there later on, but they had already two wellheads and 2 cisterns, and this is the file describing it. And so you have in it 88.3 cubic meters per year of water, which is a reasonable amount if you consider an estimation of a colleague of mine, a historian, who said that the average liters, the quantity per person in Venice in the 16th century was 5.5 to 6 liters per person. Of course, the noblemen will have much more, and the poor people will have less. But anyhow, this is average quantity. So forget showers, forget the tub open while you're washing your teeth, and so forth. It's not, we cannot make comparisons with this, because it's another society, it's another way. But it was considered enough. So even the St. Mark's Square, there was a cistern in the square. The bell tower is here, more or less. Those are the new procuratie. And here in the middle of the square, opposite the church of San Gimignano, you have a cistern which has been restored newly by Jacopo Sansovino in the 50s or the 60s of the 16th century. But after a few years, his cistern didn't work anymore. It was filled by very big black flies, There was a horrible smell coming out from there. And of course, because the height of the squares and marks, which is a very low area, ancient and so very low area, the salty water get inside, and so it was ruined, and after really a few years it was out of use. So a convent, my main university building, I Tolentini, the Senate provided the approval to build a convent at the conditions that they must pay one mass on Sunday for the inhabitants of the parish, and they must provide a public system in the first courtyard of the convent. So it belongs to the convent, but the water is the poor people of the parish church. Every single, small or big courtyard, there is a wellhead in the middle, because we need cistern. So this is the urban tissue. You see that this spongy has a very big hole here where you have a cistern, St. Paul's it means, St. Polo, where the dimensions of the water supply area is 1,100 meters. So you have a very big quantity because you have many people. But if you look carefully on the roofs, you can, which I colored, which it comes out that it's really a spongy tissue. Those white areas are the courtyards inside those court houses. So easily we can find a cistern. A cistern which is private, of course, mainly private. The blue one is public. This is, in the Campo, is public, but others are private, and they are in a court. But we can see that we have also red spots, red dots. What does it mean? Of course, being the land so expensive, they had to invent something. And what they invented is a way to collect water without losing a single square meter of land. So the concept of the courtyard was brought up to the roof. The roof became the provider of water for every building, especially speculative tenements like those. This is the year 1547, the Capello family, important Doge family, and this is not a palace, this is a tenement which works like that. From the colors you can understand it quite well. This is the ground floor, here, which is divided in 4 colors, so you have to find out your own door. And then you have the first noble floor, le bel étage, première, you have the second noble floor, and then you have the top floor, which is a mezzanine, the height is reduced, and also that one is divided in 4 colors. So that each house has 1/4, more or less, at the ground floor, half of each bel étage, and 1/4 at the top mezzanine. Adding together communism, you will have 300 square meters per house. They were called house. And they paid the same rental per year, 40 ducats per year. This is a revolution in the Venetian housing because it provides independent doors, and with the invention of the double stairs that you may remember from Palladio or from Sansovino, if you go to a department store, the escalators are double stairs. One runs in one direction, the other in the opposite direction, and they change their direction on the top floor, so that each house has its own privacy. But what matters in this case are the staircases, Leonardesque or double stairs, and the private water supply, which was built utilizing those pipes inside the walls, taking down the water from the roof, 1548, 1550. Castelforte San Rocco, it looks like a palace. It isn't a palace. There are Those are 4 houses. I call them double houses because each bay, each sector, from the symmetry axe, which is here in the middle, this is the symmetry axe. On the left or on the right-hand side, you will have 2 houses mixing up together to every floor. In this case, you have even 2 mezzanines, the first mezzanine and the top mezzanine. This is the same, and you can see the direction of the water in the gutter, which goes down to, you can see those rings, which are the wells, the wellheads inside the houses. Here they are, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they have something 50 cubic meter per year of water, which is large quantity. It comes out that, considering 4 inhabitants, it was something like 22, 23 liters of water per person per day, which was large amount of money of water. So those are the dimensions of the cisterns according to the survey of the city engineer, Engineer Bianco, and those are in cross-section. Now, this is an important step to understand. You can see the courage of the architect who invented it. And the first one, from what we have learned, is Antonio Abbondi, called Lo Scarpagnino, who presented the double building to the school of San Rocco's in the year 1533, telling that the cisterns will be dug through the plinth, the foundation plinth. And this is very courageous because you know what happened. Do you remember what happened to Sansovino when he was building his library in St. Mark's Square? He utilized a Roman vault and the vault collapsed and he went to jail. So you can see that those are the foundations. Now, this is the wellhead of the Castelforte San Rocco, one of the 4, and it's divided into 2 because one is in the entrance, water for the house, and the other half of it is in a nearby room, which in the records we found in the archives, Paulina found them, is called the laundry. So they were utilizing the water also for the washing. And every kind of tenement of this, of double housing, they had their own, rich or middle class, they had their own water supply. Here you have the same, 1556 or 1609. Then it happened that the aqueduct arrived in the year 1884, and it caused the death of the water supply system by filtering cistern. And this is the flower bunch for the funeral of the cistern in the Ca' Foscari University. You see that a tree, a wisteria, is growing nearby the wellhead, and this means that the wellhead is no more of use. What we decided, you didn't ask me how many of those cisterns were in Venice. 7,000. The 11% of the area of the city, built or unbuilt, was providing water to the cistern, 11%. So you can imagine the extremely powerful links between the urban tissue and the water supply. So I said, it's very stupid to use in the Museum of Natural History, to use the water for the WCs. There are 20,000 students visiting here, and every time they go to the toilet, they flush the water and they use good drinkable water. Why should we use it if we have 7,000 cisterns? So I made a project utilizing the water, which was not successful because no more money, because of the Moses. The Moses is the barriers project. All the money for the maintenance of the city went into the protection against the high tides, so no money for that. But I'm very happy to tell you that in the Marciano Library, with a colleague who was heading the restoration of the reading hall, he asked me my help, and together we organized the collection of this cistern, designed and built by Jacopo Sansovino, which now provides the water for the new toilets. So no more use of water, good water for the toilets, but water collected by the roofs. This is the project I did in 2003, presenting it, which means new life for the old cisterns in Venice. You can find it in the web. And we created a GIS, and you see this is not the pest of Venice. This is the number of cisterns, which is quite amazing, isn't it? And everyone is linked with the database, and so it comes out. For instance, that one, it comes out, the file with a survey of the city engineer, which says the height is 3.5 meters, you see. The quantity, the dimensions of the collecting area is 24 square meters, where you have the clay, and then the capacity is 42 cubic meters per year. So we went there. I got a phone call by, this is the building. There are 10 and 10 houses, Venetian double houses, one in the other, built by Jacopo Sansovino, very possibly, in 1555. And in each one, that's the file, the original file of 1858 by the city engineer. And my friend called me and said, I am restoring the ground floor, come and see the cistern. I ran there, and I saw that, eventually free from the paving, and you can see the sand, you can see the box, which is the first filtering. Do you remember the gallery? When the cistern is small, you don't build a gallery, you build just a box, so that the rainwater comes in, gets filtered, and then from then it goes to the sand. And we were able to survey it, and we were able to see the foundation plinth, the upper level wall, upper level of the foundation plinth visible, and then the clay. This bluish, greenish, gray color here is the clay. Everything fits, which is important for us. And so we did a survey. This is the water, that's the wellhead. No wellhead, the shaft. The wellhead disappeared. Here is the rainwater coming down from the roof with the pipes. Here is the little canal, and this goes to the box. But we were able to verify the mistake of the survey of the city engineer. He said the 18 or 24 square meters were those, which is not true. Because here, on one side and on the other side of the shaft, and even here, there are 3 relieving arches. And the sand continues in this room, number 3, and in this room as well. So the dimension of the filter is at least 3 times more what is described. So if we do a restoration of that, we will have a lot of water. Instead of, what was it, 40 or 50 liters, we'll have 3 times more, which will create really a convenient point. This is a cross section, and those are the relieving arch. The relieving arches are, letter R, that you can see. So that it continues. Well, the only, and at 5 o'clock we'll end, only one thing remained undiscovered to our research on the water of Venice, and it's the origin of the Venetian system. Who invented it? Nobody knows. There are no records. We know that the first cistern surveyed by the city engineer is in the year 11, in the century, 11th century. 1015, that's the first one. But we don't know anything about that. I had the suspicion that being Venice Roman land and being Venice in Italy or in the Mediterranean, the inventors must be the Romans. And actually, by chance, talking and reading, I asked this to very distinguished archaeologists in Cambridge last year, the professor of classic archaeology, Graham Barker, I asked to the most distinguished Italian professors of archaeology, have you discovered such a cistern as in your excavation? No, we have empty chamber cisterns dug into the rock or built outside, as in Libya, but not the filtering system. But eventually, to make a long story short, it came out that Dr. Medas and D'Agostino, two submarine underwater archaeologists, they found it one at 6 meters under the water in the Venetian lagoon at 5 or 6 kilometers far from St. Mark's Square. Is there. With a difference. The difference is that this box, which is filled by sand, as you see, which has the shaft here, is 2.20 meters high. The 6 sides are built out of sesquipedali, the Roman big bricks. So also the upper part was covered, but it was not under the soil, it was over the soil. And it was on an embankment, on a dock, so that the Roman ships arriving in the 2nd and 3rd century, docking there, will get their fresh water supply. They put them in barrels, I presume, and they will start traveling, or they'll continue traveling, having a fresh water supply. The intelligence of the Venetians is double. The first intelligence is to remember the Roman way of collecting water. The second is to press it 3.5 meters under the soil. Thank you very much for your patience, and that's it.